Okay, welcome back to The Snap, a very special episode on St. George's Day, Patrick.
Yeah, happy St. George's Day, everybody. Does anybody know where St. George was born? Because I had an exclusive revelation on my Twitter feed this morning that annoyed certain left-wing people or went over their heads, that St. Patrick wasn't Irish. St. Patrick's either English or Welsh or possibly Scottish. But as far as the left's concerned, it's national St. George wasn't born in England Day, which is a bit crackers.
I mean, Patrick, it seems like there's a strong correlation in people who sort of want to run down St. George's Day in any aspect of actually being proud of England and proud to be English, and those who seem to consistently poo-poo any sort of positive news that comes out about Brexit Britain.
Yeah, it's all part of the same thing, isn't it? And it's even within the UK, Englishness is the only nationality which is meant to be repressed and which the left turns on. But I must exempt today Dawn Butler, Red Dawn herself, who's put out what I think is a mischievous tweet saying Happy St. George's Day, and she just wishes she could celebrate it like she normally does, down the pub with a pie and a pint and her favourite trifle for dessert. I think she's making a bit of mischief there, but at least she's showing a sense of humour.
Yeah, and one of the things I've been talking about on my channel, Patrick, that I think isn't going to go any time soon is the constitutional sort of settlement we've got in the UK at the moment. As we know, we've talked about it a bit before, but you've got a Welsh Parliament debate going on about what's going on in Wales. You've got a Scottish Parliament debate where the Scottish Party leaders are talking about Scotland. What about England? Will we ever see an English Parliament?
Yeah, or some would say, will we ever see a bank holiday for St. George's Day, let alone an English Parliament? But clearly the constitutional settlement is broken. As from an English perspective, 90% of the population of the UK, you would feel that there's a bit of tail wagging the dog here. And whenever the left address devolution in English terms, they always try and make it about regional government. Well, England doesn't want a regional government. England wants an English Parliament potentially, or at least a levelling up of the whole UK constitutional settlement. Very few people seem to want to grasp that nettle.
Absolutely. We like to be positive, don't we, Patrick, about our country on this show. And a double whammy of good news. First of all, Britain set for its sharpest economic growth since 1988 this year, according to forecasts by economists. Some economists actually saying it could be even higher. It could actually be over 7% this year. And secondly, that manufacturing optimism at its highest level in nearly 50 years. This is according to the latest CBI quarterly industrial trend survey. Its quarterly business optimism gauge jumped to plus 38, its highest, Patrick, level since April 1973. Do let us know in the comments, by the way, have you seen any of this reported on TV news?
Well, it's very, very underplayed on terrestrial TV news, on Sky News as well. I must admit, I don't watch as much of it as I used to, but it's very, very rare that you will find this economic success story talked about. And I must say, the transformation of economic sentiment this year is quite remarkable. And you mentioned the independent economists now, which are the ones that the Bank of England collates, have upped from last month their growth forecast for this year on average from 4.7% to 5.7%. You mentioned the CBI manufacturing forecast too. Almost every day a new projection comes in, and they're all pointing in one direction. They are all pointing for the next year and a half to 2 years being a time of really rapid growth for the UK economy. So hopefully we can make back what we lost during the COVID contraction within 2 years. And it took 5 years to make up for what we lost after the financial crash, which was a smaller contraction, but it took over twice as long to make good that. So, the Remainers were saying the Brexit trade deal was going to be an economic disaster. Well, it doesn't, whether it's a positive boon or not, it certainly doesn't appear to be any kind of drag. And the big story of the year, one of the very biggest stories, is the British economy is going to let rip.
Yeah, and as I've touched on, Patrick, actually JP Morgan, Oxford Economics and Bloomberg Economics is reported expecting an even swifter recovery with growth of 7% or more, which would be the quickest economic advance in the post-war era. I mean, that would be remarkable, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and there seems to be more and more people who are talking about sixes and sevens. And for a mature economy like the UK to get a 7% growth with perhaps another 5% next year on top, that really would be quite remarkable. And, you know, that would give policymakers a little bit of time to work out, can we push onto a permanently higher growth path? Can we make use of this rebound to build some momentum that will take us on so we can get a normal growth rate about 3% instead of under 2%? And if we could manage to pull off that trick, then we could be looking over 10 years at a real massive step up in prosperity generally.
Now, a tale of two deals. We've got the Australian Trade Minister currently in discussions with Liz Truss. Dan Tehan telling Sky News there'd been real warmth in his discussions with Truss, saying he's absolutely confident of a deal with the UK. Of course, Brexit Britain now free to negotiate and, of course, walk away from any bad deals as it negotiates, stands at its own 2 feet globally. And then secondly, Patrick, it's only taken them 4 months. We hear now finally the EU, the European Parliament next week, next Tuesday, will finally get around to voting on the UK deal. Seems pretty ridiculous that it's taken so long.
Yeah, I mean, on Liz Truss, I think it's quite good she's playing hardball with her Australian opposite number. And I think she was accused of sledging, which is quite an amusing concept. But the Australian envoy has come out and sort of said he's sure we can make progress over the next couple of days. So Liz Truss has done a pretty good job on securing new trade deals, including with Japan. So let's hope she can make Australia, you know, the next feather in her cap. Yeah, on the European Parliament, you know, who knows what they'll come out with when they finally vote. There'll no doubt be a few temper tantrums. I think it's really getting to them that the UK is doing so well, obviously with the vaccination situation. But what really wasn't supposed to happen was that the UK would leave the EU and then grow much faster than not only the Eurozone, but the whole EU on average. So I think it could be a bit of an ill-tempered whinge fest there, but I would think at the end of it, the MEPs under direction from their group leaders, who in turn are under direction from EU national leaders who already signed up, will rubber stamp the deal.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on that positive economic news earlier, Patrick, and you know, you throw in global trade deals, you throw in the vaccine procurement rollout. I mean, all these predictions that we heard for so long, and of course we spoke previously about the IMF now forecasting the UK to have the fastest growing advanced economy in the entire world by 2022. It just seems to me, something I'm really keen to highlight, is that the Brexit reality, not of what we heard on the front pages for years about what could, may, or might happen. Case after case now, it's been proven that what was being said, what was being theorised, was a load of old claptrap, basically put out there to try and thwart Brexit, to stop people voting leave, and to try and overturn the referendum result.
Yeah, it's very curious that, you know, even if you're not an enthusiast for Brexit, I think from an economic point of view, most people are now admitting that it makes very little difference one way or the other to aggregate growth, particularly when the EU is sort of dragging the knowledge economy down with over-regulation. There's, you know, the prospect for reaching these bilateral trade deals much quicker. The odd thing is that they based their whole referendum campaign on this idea of an economic collapse. And that leads you to the conclusion that's all they had. They couldn't find anything else to engender any positive sentiment towards the United States of Europe project being run from Brussels. That all they had was scare stories about what might happen on the economic front, and that really has collapsed. So the rejoin thing is a tiny cultural movement of the metropolitan elites. It's going nowhere, and it's really exciting, I think, for those of us who stuck our necks out, believed in Britain, to see we really can do it on the world stage. We really can be fast-moving, innovative, inward investment pouring in, and the prospects, at least for the next couple of years, you know, really terrific.
Absolutely. And guys, look, thanks so much for watching again. If you haven't yet, make sure you hit subscribe and the bells. You don't miss the next episode. We hope you have a great St. George's Day, and Patrick will be back soon.
Yeah, back soon. Have a beer for St. George tonight.
Cheers.